They threatened the human, until the alien princess stepped forward. The gleaming silver of the spacecraft's hull reflected the stars as it descended toward Zithera, a planet whispered about in interstellar circles as one of the most technologically advanced and secretive civilizations in the galaxy. Elias tightened his grip on the armrest of his chair, his knuckles white, as the shuttle shuddered through the upper atmosphere. This mission was supposed to be a routine exploration, a simple gesture of humanity's readiness to reach out to alien worlds. Yet the tension in the air told him that nothing about Zithera was routine. The shuttle touched down in a clearing rimmed with towering crystalline structures that shimmered like living prisms in the soft amber light of the planet's twin suns. Elias and his small team of scientists and engineers stepped onto the surface, their boots making crunching noises on the pale, iridescent sand. The wind was thick with an unfamiliar scent, a mixture of metallic tang and something almost floral, and it filled Elias with a strange mixture of awe and unease. They were quickly surrounded. Figures emerged from the crystalline structures like shadows, tall, graceful, and impossibly elegant. Their skin shimmered in subtle shades of violet and silver, and their eyes, large and almond-shaped, seemed to hold centuries of intelligence. Elias froze for a heartbeat, taking in the sight of the Zitherans. They were beautiful, alien, and utterly unreadable. A figure stepped forward, clearly the leader of the group. Her movements were fluid, confident, and every motion seemed deliberate, a study in controlled grace. Elias felt a chill run down his spine as she raised a hand, signaling his team to halt. "You are trespassing on sacred ground," she said, her voice calm but with an edge that made the hairs on his neck stand. Elias opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, another figure, taller and broader, stepped beside her. The taller one's expression was hard, almost hostile, and his eyes narrowed as they fell on Elias. Elias swallowed hard. "We come in peace," he said, keeping his voice steady. "We are explorers from Earth. We mean no harm." The Zitherans didn't respond immediately. The leader's eyes, sharp and calculating, studied him. Finally, she spoke again. "Your presence here is unexpected. The Council will decide your fate." Before Elias could ask what that meant, two Zitherans moved forward, and with surprising speed and gentleness, they restrained him. His team tried to protest, but the alien's movements were so precise, so fluid, that any resistance seemed futile. Within moments, Elias found himself led toward the towering crystalline city. He glanced back at his team, seeing their confusion and fear mirrored in their eyes. As they entered the city, Elias was struck by its sheer scale. The crystalline structures formed towers and arches that seemed to defy physics, glowing softly from within as if the buildings themselves were alive. Light refracted off every surface, creating shifting patterns that danced across the streets. He realized the city wasn't just advanced, it was an artwork, a living testament to the Zitherans' intellect and aesthetic sense. He was brought before the council, a semicircle of figures seated on elevated platforms. Each member radiated authority, their eyes fixed on him with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. The leader from outside stepped forward and spoke again. "This human has violated the laws of Zithera by entering our sacred city without permission," she announced. "We must decide what to do with him." Elias swallowed, trying to maintain his composure. He had expected fear, perhaps hostility, but the formal weight of judgment made his heart pound. He stepped forward cautiously. "I am not here to violate your laws or your people," he said. "We are explorers. We seek knowledge and understanding. Please, let us communicate." A few of the council members exchanged glances. One of them, a lean figure with iridescent markings across his face, spoke in a voice that resonated like metal striking metal. "Humans are unpredictable. They act without understanding. How can we trust that this one is different?" Elias realized that trust would not come easily. He needed to prove himself, not just as an individual, but as a representative of humanity. He took a deep breath and began to speak of the journey that brought them here, the challenges of space travel, the careful preparations, and the peaceful intentions behind their mission. He spoke of his team, of the value of sharing knowledge, and of humanity's desire to learn from others. Some of the council members leaned forward, their interest piqued. Others, however, remained rigid, their expressions cold and unyielding. Elias could feel the tension in the chamber, a thin wire stretched taut, ready to snap. One of the harsher council members finally spoke. "Words are easy. Actions reveal truth. What proof do you offer that humans deserve our trust?" Elias looked around, noticing the subtle weaknesses in their posture, the flickers of curiosity beneath the veneer of authority. "Proof comes not from words alone," he said. "It comes from deeds. Allow me a chance to demonstrate my intentions and the intentions of my people. Judge us not by fear but by our actions." A murmur ran through the council. Some members nodded while others frowned. The leader, who had been silent, regarded him with an unreadable expression. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but commanding. "You will be held here while we deliberate. Any attempt to escape or resist will be seen as confirmation of your danger." Elias was led to a chamber, not a prison in the traditional sense, but a room of crystalline walls that shimmered with light, softly illuminating the space. It was beautiful, yet it felt confining. He could see the city outside through the translucent walls, the movement of Zitherans going about their lives, indifferent to his presence. As he sat, he thought about the stories of humanity's history, of explorers venturing into unknown lands and facing uncertain fates. He understood that this was a moment that could define not just him, but humanity's relationship with Zithera. Fear gnawed at him, but beneath it was a spark of determination. Humans were survivors. They were inventive, resourceful, and brave in the face of danger. That spark would not be extinguished here. Hours passed. The chamber remained quiet, save for the occasional hum of energy from the crystalline walls. Elias examined every detail, the patterns in the crystal, the way light refracted, the subtle mechanisms embedded in the surfaces. Even here, humanity could find opportunity to learn, to understand. He made mental notes, realizing that observation might be the key to survival. Eventually, the door opened, and two Zitherans entered. They did not speak but gestured for him to follow. Elias rose, careful not to appear confrontational. They led him to a larger hall where the council members were once again gathered. The discussion that followed was intense. Some council members argued for immediate execution, citing the danger humans posed and the sanctity of their laws. Others were intrigued by Elias' composure and intelligence, seeing in him a chance to gain insight into a new species. Through it all, Elias remained calm, listening, observing, and occasionally responding with clarity and honesty. Each exchange revealed more about the Zitherans, their values, their fears, their sense of order. And in the subtle ways they reacted to him, he began to see a glimmer of hope. A voice cut through the discussion, different from the others. Calm, measured, and filled with authority, yet not harsh. "Perhaps we should consider not just the law, but the potential. This human shows qualities that may be rare, even valuable." Elias turned slightly, his heart catching. The speaker was a young woman, her features delicate yet commanding, her eyes bright with intelligence. He did not know her role, but her words carried weight. The council paused, listening as she continued, advocating not for fear but for the possibility of understanding. It was a small crack in the wall of hostility, but it was enough to keep him alive, for now. Elias realized that survival in this world would require patience, observation, and courage. More than that, it would require humanity to shine through, not in defiance, but in its ability to inspire curiosity and respect. As the council adjourned, Elias was led back to his chamber. He sat down, exhausted but resolute. The stars outside Zithera's twin suns twinkled faintly, reminding him that this was only the beginning. Humanity had arrived in the galaxy, and whether Zitherans would accept them or not, he was determined to show that humans were not just survivors. They were explorers, thinkers, and, above all, courageous in ways that could change worlds. And somewhere in the shadows of the council chamber, the young woman who had spoken remained, her thoughts clearly lingering on the human who had dared to face the council with calm, clarity, and courage. She would not forget him. The following morning, the Chamber of Light had a different feeling. The sun's twin beams passed through the crystalline walls and painted moving patterns across the floor, glimmering like rivers of color. Elias sat on the polished bench, watching the light dance. Sleep had been restless, full of thoughts about Zithra, the council, and the strange young woman who had spoken on his behalf. He did not know her name, yet her calm presence had given him a small, stubborn hope that maybe he would survive this encounter. Outside, the city moved with a rhythm that Elias could barely comprehend. Zitherans glided through the streets like living sculptures, their movements smooth, precise, and intentional. They spoke softly to one another in a language of musical tones, which Elias could only observe. Even the smallest gestures seemed charged with meaning. Here, even ordinary life was art, and humans had never seen anything like it. After a while, the door opened, and two Zitherans entered, their movements deliberate and graceful. Elias rose, cautious but composed. They gestured for him to follow. He obeyed, walking carefully along the corridors that pulsed with light. Every step seemed measured, as if the city itself was observing him, testing him. He was brought into a larger hall where the council had reconvened. Some members had changed their positions overnight, their expressions flickering between curiosity, fear, and doubt. Elias could feel the weight of their judgment pressing on him. This was no ordinary court. It was a place where intellect, authority, and tradition collided in a dance far more dangerous than any battlefield he had ever known. The discussion began immediately. One council member, a tall figure with sharp silver markings on his face, spoke first. "This human continues to assert he means no harm, yet he has violated our laws. Should we allow such recklessness to go unpunished?" Elias stood silently, waiting for the right moment. He had learned that speaking too soon could provoke hostility. "I understand your concern," he said finally, his voice steady. "But if you judge humans only by fear, you will never know what we can contribute. We are explorers, yes, but we are also learners, creators, and thinkers. Please judge us by what we do, not by what you assume." A ripple went through the council. Some leaned forward, intrigued. Others stiffened, clearly annoyed at his persistence. One member, shorter than the others, with deep violet eyes, sneered. "Your words are smooth, human, but do not presume your kind is exceptional. We have seen countless species come and go, each believing their existence is unique. Your history proves nothing." Elias nodded, understanding their skepticism. "I do not claim that humanity is perfect," he said. "We make mistakes, we fight wars, we sometimes fail, but we also adapt. We solve problems under impossible conditions. We care, we create, and we persevere. That is what I offer Zithera, our courage and our capacity to grow." Murmurs rose in the council. Some members exchanged glances, visibly debating whether to continue pursuing punishment or to consider what Elias said. The tension in the chamber was nearly tangible. Then she appeared. The young woman who had spoken yesterday, her presence calm but commanding, stepped forward. Her robes flowed like liquid light, and her eyes locked onto Elias with quiet intensity. "Your fear blinds you," she said, addressing the council. "You see danger in a human because you have never known a species that is resilient, creative, and courageous. Judge him not by fear, but by his potential to be an ally." The council went silent. Every member turned to her, some frowning, others curious. Elias felt a spark of relief and gratitude. He still did not know her name, but her voice carried authority. She spoke not as a petitioner but as someone with influence, someone the council could not easily ignore. One of the more conservative council members, a tall, imposing figure with violet skin that glimmered under the light, rose. Potential is not enough. Actions speak louder than words. How can we be sure he will not bring chaos to our world? The young woman held his gaze for a moment, then looked around at the council. Because he has remained calm in the face of judgment, he has not lashed out. Because he speaks with honesty and respect, he earns the chance to show what humans can do. You fear what is different. That is your weakness, not his. Elias felt a shiver run down his spine. He had never known words could feel so powerful. There was something about the conviction in her voice, the clarity in her eyes that gave him hope. Not all Zitharans were against him. A discussion erupted among the council, voices overlapping in debate. Some argued for execution, citing the sacred laws of Zithara. Others, more cautious, began to see the value in learning from Elias, if only to understand a species that had survived against incredible odds. Elias listened carefully, studying the subtle expressions, the micro-movements of their hands and heads. Every detail mattered here. Inaction or misstep could cost him dearly. Hours passed, and the debate became more intense. Elias remained composed, refusing to show fear. He understood that showing panic would confirm the council's worst fears. Instead, he focused on demonstrating the traits humans were known for: courage, empathy, and intelligence. During a pause, he spoke again. "I do not ask for your trust blindly," he said. "I ask for a chance. Allow me to prove my intentions through action. You will see that humans are not reckless destroyers but careful learners and problem solvers. We do not only survive, we adapt, we protect, and we create. Give me that chance, and Zithara will see the truth of our nature." The young woman watched him closely, her expression unreadable, yet there was a subtle nod that reassured him. Some council members looked skeptical, others thoughtful. Elias realized that she was planting seeds, slowly nudging the council toward consideration, giving him the smallest possible margin of safety. Suddenly, one of the council members slammed a hand onto the crystalline table, the sound echoing sharply through the chamber. "Enough of talk. You dare speak of adaptation and courage while ignoring our laws. You presume too much human." Elias stood taller, not in defiance but with calm confidence. "I do not presume," he replied. "I observe, I learn, and I adapt. That is what humans have always done. From the first steps on our home planet to this moment among the stars, we survive not by fear but by courage, ingenuity, and compassion. Those are not mere words, they are our nature." A hush fell over the council. Even the most vocal critics paused, the weight of his words settling over them. The young woman stepped forward again, her voice firm. "And that is why he should not be judged in haste. This human embodies qualities that may benefit Zithara. Judge not by fear of what he might do, but by the possibility of what he can contribute." The council deliberated in silence for a long while. Elias could sense their minds turning over his words, analyzing, questioning, and debating. He did not speak again, understanding that patience was now his greatest ally. Eventually, the council began to disperse, leaving Elias with a sense of temporary reprieve. He was led back to the chamber of light, the walls glowing softly as before. Alone, he allowed himself a quiet breath. The tension had not lifted entirely, but for the first time he felt that survival was possible. Not just survival, but perhaps even respect. As the day passed, he observed Zithara from his room. Aliens moved through the city in patterns that seemed almost choreographed, trading goods, communicating, teaching, and learning. Elias realized that this society was not merely advanced. It was disciplined, ordered, and united by purpose. Yet it also had rigidity, a fear of the unknown, a resistance to change. That was where humanity could make a difference. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but in ways that inspired growth and new possibilities. That evening, he was brought once again before the young woman. Her eyes held a thoughtful curiosity, and when she spoke, it was in a softer tone than before. "You are unlike any human we have studied," she said. "There is courage in you and calm. I see your mind at work, even when you think I am not watching. That is rare among your kind." Elias felt a small smile form. "I suppose it is easier to survive when you have no choice but to stay calm," he said. "And when you have a chance to show what humans can offer, you take it." She nodded, her expression unreadable. "Perhaps you will have that chance. But first, the council must be convinced. You must demonstrate not just words, but actions. Your time here is not over." Elias understood. Words had bought him survival so far, but it was only the beginning. He would need to use every skill he had, observation, reasoning, empathy, and ingenuity, to prove that humanity deserved a place in Zithra's world. Night fell, and Elias lay awake, listening to the distant hum of the crystalline city. He thought of Earth, of the people who had trained him for this mission, of the risks humanity had taken to explore the stars. And he thought of the young woman, whose voice had become a beacon of hope in a world that had seemed so alien, so unforgiving. Tomorrow, he knew, would bring new challenges. The council's debates were far from over, and factions within the alien court would continue to push for extreme measures. But he also knew that humans had survived far greater dangers. They had adapted to deserts, frozen wastelands, and oceans teeming with predators. They had faced fear and emerged stronger. Here, among the Zitharans, that same resilience would be his greatest weapon. As he drifted into a light sleep, Elias resolved to stay calm, to observe, to learn, and to act. Humans were explorers, not conquerors. Their strength lay not in brute force but in courage, creativity, and the ability to inspire those around them. And somewhere in the glowing corridors of Zithra, the council would see that truth, guided by a voice that believed in possibilities rather than fear. The stars outside the crystalline walls shone with infinite potential, and Elias felt, for the first time since his capture, that he was not just a prisoner. He was a human, with all the strength, courage, and determination that came with that identity. And that alone was enough to make even the most skeptical of Zitharans pause and wonder. The day began with a quiet tension that filled the crystalline halls of Zithara. Elias had grown accustomed to the alien rhythms of the city, yet each day brought new challenges. Today, however, felt different. There was a subtle electricity in the air, as if the city itself sensed a change. The council had convened once more, their deliberations reaching a critical point. Elias had been summoned to stand before them again, and this time he sensed that the outcome of the meeting could define not only his fate, but the future relationship between humans and Zitharans. As he entered the chamber, he noticed that the council members were unusually restless. Some whispered among themselves, while others remained still, their faces masks of concentration. Elias recognized that their discussions had likely grown heated overnight. The question of what to do with him was no longer just about enforcing the law. It had become about power, perception, and the potential of the human species. The young woman who had defended him earlier stood at the center, her posture straight and authoritative. Elias finally learned her name. Princess Liara, a council member announced formally, has requested to speak before the deliberations continue. Liara's voice cut through the murmurs, calm yet commanding. "Council members, the fate of this human is not merely a matter of law. It is a test of our wisdom, our openness, and our understanding of potential. We have seen how he reacts under pressure. We have observed his courage, his reasoning, and his composure. Can we truly condemn him without seeing what he is capable of?" A tall council member with silver markings on his face rose, his expression rigid. "Your Highness, while your words carry weight, the laws are clear. This human has entered our sacred city without permission. Should we overlook such transgressions, we risk setting a precedent that could endanger Zithara. Liara's eyes narrowed slightly, but her tone remained measured. Are we to judge all potential allies by the rigid fear of breaking rules? Or shall we recognize the rare quality that humans possess, the ability to adapt, to endure, to learn, and to inspire? This human may be the bridge we have long sought, the one who can show us new possibilities. Elias felt a surge of gratitude. He had seen the council's fear and skepticism, yet here was someone willing to stand for him boldly. Princess Liara did more than defend him. She illuminated the human spirit, drawing attention to qualities the council could not ignore. One of the council elders, a figure with deep violet eyes, spoke sharply. Potential does not protect us from mistakes. What if his species brings chaos? What if we are judged for trusting him? Liara's gaze swept the room, calm and unyielding. Then we are judged for courage, for vision, and for the wisdom to see beyond immediate fear. Humanity has survived against impossible odds, faced challenges we cannot imagine, and adapted in ways that inspire. Do we condemn such a species without understanding them? Or do we embrace the chance to grow through alliance? A heated debate followed. Council members argued about the human threat, about law, about history. Elias listened carefully, noting the subtle divisions. Some members leaned toward execution, their fear of the unknown overwhelming their judgment. Others hesitated, curiosity and reason beginning to challenge centuries of rigid tradition. Liara raised a hand and the chamber fell silent. "I propose a test," she said. "If this human can demonstrate his worth, even in a small measure, then we judge him not by fear but by action. Let his deeds speak for him." The council murmured, some clearly irritated, others intrigued. The test, they decided, would not be a matter of life or death, but a challenge requiring skill, intelligence, and ingenuity. If Elias succeeded, it would be proof that humans could be valuable partners. If he failed, he would face the council's judgment once more. Elias was led to a vast chamber that served as a testing ground. Its crystalline walls stretched high, glimmering with a soft light that shifted with every movement. The floor was etched with intricate patterns, which he quickly recognized as puzzles or indicators for the challenge. A series of mechanisms, complex yet precise, filled the space. At first glance, the challenge seemed impossible, but Elias had faced impossible odds before. Humanity had survived against adversity, using brains more than brawn. He knew he could rely on his wits. Princess Liara watched silently from a raised platform, her eyes bright with interest. Elias began to study the mechanisms, noting the ways the light reflected off surfaces, how certain pieces could be moved, and how patterns aligned. He worked deliberately, testing each element carefully, observing cause and effect. Hours passed. The council watched in tense silence as he maneuvered through the challenge, adapting to unexpected obstacles with ingenuity. Where the Zitharans would have followed strict procedures, Elias improvised, combining intuition with careful observation. It was human creativity at its finest, flexible, resourceful, and precise. By the final stage, Elias had reached a mechanism that seemed to require cooperation and timing, something that demanded both intellect and courage. He paused, calculating the risks. Then, with deliberate care, he executed a sequence that activated the mechanism perfectly. Light flooded the chamber, patterns aligned, and a soft hum echoed through the walls. The challenge was complete. The council erupted into murmurs. Some members stared in disbelief. Others exchanged glances, slowly realizing that this human, so small, so different, had succeeded where many had assumed he would fail. The combination of courage, intelligence, and ingenuity had proven undeniable. Princess Liara stepped forward, her voice ringing clearly. "You see what humans are capable of. They are not merely creatures of instinct or emotion. They observe, adapt, and overcome. This human has demonstrated what his species can offer: creativity, courage, and the power to solve challenges that even we might struggle to overcome." The tall council member who had opposed Elias most fiercely spoke again, his voice quieter this time. Perhaps we underestimated him. Liara's gaze swept the room. We did not underestimate him. We merely did not see what we feared to see. This is the lesson humans bring, potential beyond our expectations. We have a choice now to embrace that potential or continue in fear. Elias, standing silently, felt a warmth he had never expected from aliens, recognition, respect, and perhaps something more, the first seeds of trust. He realized that humans had arrived in the galaxy not as conquerors, but as equals, capable of earning admiration through intellect, courage, and ingenuity. As the council deliberated, Elias noticed subtle changes in their expressions. Those who had been rigid began to nod, acknowledging his success. Others remained skeptical but quieter, as if reconsidering their assumptions. Princess Liara's presence seemed to guide the discussion, her influence clear and undeniable. Finally, the council reached a decision. Elias was not to be executed. Instead, he would remain under observation, allowed limited freedom, and tasked with working alongside Zitharans on projects that could demonstrate humanity's value further. It was not total acceptance, but it was a victory, a recognition that humans could stand as equals in a world so alien, so advanced. Princess Liara approached him after the council's decision, her expression calm yet warm. "You did well," she said softly. "You showed what humans can offer, not with words alone, but with action. That is what they respect, even if they do not always admit it." Elias nodded, grateful yet cautious. "Thank you, Princess Liara. Your support made the difference. I could not have convinced them alone." She smiled faintly. "You reminded them of something they often forget, that courage, intelligence, and adaptability can belong to anyone, even those they fear. You have done more than survive today. You have inspired consideration and perhaps even change." As he left the chamber, Elias felt a shift within himself. He was no longer merely a prisoner. He was a human among aliens, a representative of a species capable of extraordinary resilience and ingenuity. He had faced fear, adapted, and triumphed, not with force but with mind and spirit. That evening he observed Zithara from a high platform. The city stretched out beneath him, glowing softly in the twilight. He could see Zitharans moving with purpose, yet there was a new subtlety in their steps, a recognition that the human among them was not just an intruder, but a being worthy of observation, respect, and perhaps even alliance. Princess Liara joined him silently, standing at his side as they watched the city. "Tomorrow will bring new challenges," she said quietly. "The council will test you further, and there will be those who resist seeing humans as equals. But know this, today you proved something important. Humanity is capable of more than even we imagined." Elias felt a surge of determination. "Then tomorrow I will continue to prove it," he replied, "not just for myself but for all humans." Liara nodded, a small smile on her lips. "And I will stand with you as an ally. Perhaps together we can show the council that the future is not something to fear, but something to shape with courage, intelligence, and vision." As the twin suns set, casting long shadows across the crystalline city, Elias realized that his journey was far from over. Yet for the first time, he felt a true sense of purpose. He was not merely surviving in an alien world. He was proving the essence of humanity, its courage, ingenuity, and indomitable spirit. And in the process, he had earned an unexpected ally in Princess Liara, whose belief in possibility had opened a door that fear alone could never have unlocked. The night deepened, and the city shimmered under the twin moons. Elias knew that tomorrow would bring new trials, but he was ready. Humanity had always risen to challenges greater than this, and here, in the heart of Zithara, he would rise again, not alone, but with hope, courage, and the unyielding strength that defined his species. The morning sun spilled through the crystalline walls of Zithara, painting the city in shifting hues of amber and silver. Elias stood at the edge of a high platform, watching the twin suns rise over the horizon. The events of the past days had been overwhelming, but he felt a growing confidence. The council had seen him succeed, had begun to recognize human ingenuity and courage, and now he faced his next challenge. A test that would prove not only his own abilities, but the potential for humanity to become a true ally to Zithra. Princess Liara approached quietly, her steps as light and precise as ever. She stood beside him, her gaze on the city below. "The council has arranged a task for you today," she said. "It is not merely about skill or intelligence. It is about leadership, problem-solving, and the ability to work with others. They want to see if humans can collaborate with us, not just succeed alone." Elias nodded, his mind already turning over possibilities. "I am ready," he said. "Humans have always thrived when facing challenges together. That is who we are." Liara smiled faintly. "Then let us show them." He was led to a vast open area outside the main city. The space was dominated by a large, complex machine, half biological, half technological, its structure stretching toward the sky like the branches of a living tree. The council members had gathered in observation galleries, their eyes watching every movement. The task was clear. The machine controlled an energy grid that powered the city's outer districts, and a critical malfunction had been simulated for the purpose of the test. Elia's objective was to restore the grid using logic, coordination, and insight, while Zitharan engineers watched closely. At first, the machine appeared incomprehensible. Wires and conduits twisted like vines, panels glowed with strange symbols, and energy pulses raced through it in unpredictable rhythms. Yet Elia's eyes quickly scanned the system, noting patterns, flows, and connections. The challenge demanded more than brute force. It required understanding, adaptation, and the ability to act under pressure, qualities humans had honed for millennia. Princess Liara remained close, observing silently but offering subtle guidance when necessary. "Trust your instincts," she said softly. "Notice the patterns, not just the rules. Humans see connections differently." Elias nodded, taking a deep breath. He began to trace the energy flows, identifying nodes that were unstable. Using his knowledge of physics, engineering, and human ingenuity, he devised a method to stabilize the system. He worked carefully, ensuring that each adjustment would not create new problems. His movements were deliberate, combining observation, experimentation, and insight, a perfect blend of human adaptability and reasoning. Minutes passed like hours. The council watched with increasing interest, some leaning forward, their expressions betraying curiosity and amazement. The machine pulsed erratically, testing his resolve, but Elias did not falter. Each challenge was met with careful analysis and precise action. Then a new complication arose. A conduit sparked violently, threatening to overload the system. Zitharan engineers hesitated, unsure how to respond without risking the entire grid. Elias did not panic. He quickly analyzed the situation, calculated the safest sequence of interventions, and directed the engineers with clear, calm instructions. "Shift the energy here, stabilize these nodes, and synchronize the main flow with the secondary conduits. Now." The engineers followed, their movements hesitant at first, then confident as Elia's guidance proved accurate. Slowly, the system began to stabilize. Energy pulses aligned, lights dimmed and brightened rhythmically, and the machine hummed steadily, its rhythm harmonious once more. The city's outer districts, which had been dim and unstable during the simulation, now glowed with full power, a testament to his success. A murmur ran through the council. Elias had done more than fix a machine. He had demonstrated leadership, composure under pressure, and the ability to collaborate with a foreign species. His actions spoke louder than words, proving that humans could adapt and excel even in environments and systems they had never encountered before. Princess Liara stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "You see what humans bring," she said to the council. "They do not merely follow rules, they innovate. They do not merely obey, they think. This human has proven that humanity can be a partner, not a threat." One of the more skeptical council members, the tall figure with silver markings, spoke, his tone quieter than before. "Perhaps we were wrong to judge him solely by fear. His actions demonstrate qualities that we have long overlooked." Another member, younger and less rigid, nodded. "We have witnessed courage, intelligence, and the capacity to inspire cooperation. Humans are indeed remarkable." Elias felt a surge of pride, not for himself alone, but for all of humanity. Humans had survived against impossible odds, adapted to harsh environments, and now stood before an alien civilization, proving that they could contribute meaningfully to a species far more advanced. After the task, Elias and Princess Liara were escorted back to the council chamber. The mood was different now, warmer, more thoughtful, and cautiously optimistic. Council members who had been vocal in their opposition appeared less rigid, their minds open to the possibility of collaboration. Liara addressed the council. "This human has not only met the challenge but has exceeded expectations. He has shown ingenuity, calmness, and the ability to work with our people. I propose that we consider a new form of alliance, a partnership that recognizes the strengths of humans and the wisdom of Zithra." The chamber fell silent. Some members exchanged wary glances, while others leaned forward, intrigued. The idea of a partnership with humanity was unprecedented. For centuries, Zitharans had been cautious, even isolationist, wary of new species and unfamiliar technologies. Yet Elia's actions had begun to shift that perception. One of the elder members, a figure with deep violet eyes, spoke thoughtfully. "It is clear that this human is capable, but an entire species. Can we trust humans broadly or only this individual?" Liara's eyes glimmered with conviction. "Trust is earned, not given blindly. Elias represents humanity's potential. If we approach them with guidance, observation, and collaboration, we can learn from them as they learn from us. We must judge by possibilities, not just by fear." The council debated late into the day, but Elias could sense the tide turning. The combination of his success, Princess Liara's advocacy, and the undeniable demonstration of human ingenuity had opened minds that had long resisted change. By the end of the discussion, the council reached a historic decision. Elias would remain on Zithra as an ambassador of sorts, permitted to interact freely with Zitharan engineers, scholars, and leaders. A program would be established to facilitate collaboration, allowing humans and Zitharans to share knowledge, solve problems together, and explore the potential of both species. Elias felt a profound sense of accomplishment. This was more than survival, it was recognition. Humanity had not only earned a place on Zithra, it had earned respect. Later, as the twin suns began to set, casting long shadows across the crystalline city, Elias and Princess Liara stood together on a balcony overlooking the glowing streets. The hum of the city was calm, orderly, yet vibrant, a living reflection of both tradition and innovation. "You have done something remarkable here," Liara said softly. "You did not rely on strength, nor on deception. You relied on courage, intelligence, and cooperation. That is what humans are capable of." Elias smiled. "It was not me alone. Your guidance, your belief in the possibility made the difference. Without you, I might have survived, but I would not have been able to show them what humans can offer." Liara's expression softened. "Perhaps together we can show Zithra that the future is not something to fear but something to shape. Humans bring potential that even we cannot fully predict, and that is something worth embracing." Elias nodded, gazing at the city below. He could see engineers working together, scholars observing, and citizens moving with the grace and discipline of their culture. Yet now, there was a subtle change. Curiosity replaced suspicion, and openness began to replace rigid fear. Humans had earned a place in this world, not as invaders but as partners. As night fell, the twin moons rose, bathing the city in a soft silver glow. Elias felt a deep sense of purpose. Humanity's journey among the stars had only just begun, but Zithra was a symbol of what could be achieved when courage, ingenuity, and collaboration met opportunity. Princess Liara stood beside him, silent for a moment, then spoke. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. The Council will continue to observe, and not all will accept change easily. But know this, you have proven that humans are more than capable of standing among us. You have proven that humanity's potential is limitless. Elias felt the weight of her words and the responsibility they carried. He was not just an individual anymore. He was a symbol of his species, a representative of humanity's courage, intelligence, and adaptability. And with allies like Princess Liara, he knew that the future held possibilities beyond imagination. As he looked out over the glowing city, Elias realized that survival had never been the goal. It was understanding, growth, and collaboration that mattered. Humanity had arrived among the stars not merely to endure, but to inspire, to innovate, and to create bridges where others might see only walls. The night deepened, and the city shimmered under the moons. Elias understood that this was just the beginning. Challenges would continue and skepticism would remain, but the foundation had been laid. Humanity had proven its worth. And in the heart of Zithra, with courage, intelligence, and the guidance of Princess Liara, Elias saw a future where humans and Zithrans could stand together, not as strangers, not as adversaries, but as partners in a universe filled with possibilities. He took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of the city, the quiet energy of the cosmos, and the steady heartbeat of hope. Humanity had arrived, and the stars had taken notice. And for the first time in his life, Elias knew that being human was enough to make a difference. They threatened the human, until the alien princess stepped forward.